Hello and welcome. This is Truthful, your French veteran Jim. Today we're about to explore minions. I have already set out one video about swarms, and I will be referencing some of the elements within the swarm video. If you would like to see this video, you can just check it on my channel. It's not far away. So minions. What are minions? Minions are another way to make monsters in mass. It's another way to have a number of creatures or multiple creatures on one battle map without having to do too much math or calculus or too many manipulations that would slow the game. If you have too many minions, there is a house rule about not having more than about 10 minis or 10 creatures or elements at one table situation at once. And this is mostly true. Minions are a way to have more than the famous agreed upon 10 limit without having the game slowing too much. Now, to look at what minions are, we are going to have a look at this nice and gentle goblin. This is the goblin stat block, and in this stat block you can see a goblin has a number of HP. A minion is a way or a transformation of any stat block. There is a story about minions in previous editions, and there are different rules. I'm going to rather use the example here more than give you a history lesson. So for this stat block to become a minion, what I would need is to consider that the HP number here is not really what it says. If this goblin were to take any amount of damage, anything would hit him. If at least 1 point of damage is dealt to this minion, then the goblin dies. No matter the total amount of HP that this stat block mentions. Minions are easy in that way that you can have like 10 of them and they will be only need to make sure they either take no damage or they die. So they have a simpler way to be considered by the GM. It also grounds for players a great and exclusive way of killing a bunch of creatures. Minions will have features to express this all or nothing capacity. They have one real HP, so they either die or they survive to anything that happens. And the usual problem with this would be in a D&D setting a spell or an effect that grants damage even if a creature is missed or even if a creature survives or succeeds to a save or a check. Then the minions would have their own house rule, and this rule is very simple. If they succeed to evade an attack or if an attack fails to hit them, they take no damage. An attack with an effect like a graze effect would normally make damage even if they miss the creature. The minions are immune to that kind of effect. Now, minions also have a way of dealing damage that could be different. One way to go with them is to consider that the damage that is listed there in the minion is not something you're going to roll. Minions are going to be doing damage based on how many creatures are helping each other for the attack. If you have 10 goblins surrounding a player, then this player is going to be taking 10 damage. Often minions will be dealing something lesser than this. They will often be doing like a minimum of 1 damage plus 1 per 2 creatures surrounding the player. You can consider whether the minions act like swarms, and in that sense they would have some condition immunities, but it is not necessary. It is something you can decide for yourself based on the type of minion you are wanting to use. Now, minions can be scaled up, and that is, to me, the most important position of a minion. Let's forget about this goblin for a second and look at an ogre. What if you want to use 20 ogres, but these ogres are minions because they're actually just the small creatures compared to the players, and most likely just the side creatures into a bigger fight. Let's say they went to see an ogre lord, and this ogre lord is extremely powerful and he can dish out immense mass effects of damage, and it has like armors and legendary mechanics and boss mechanics. In some other video I will consider the legendary actions and bosses mechanics. This is for future works. For now, let's just assume we have this kind of a boss fight and we want 20 ogres to come in. Well, if the ogres are only have 1 real HP, this means that if they take but 1 damage, they're gonna be wiped out. And that's great, I think. You can dislike it and you can just disregard this idea. I'm just here to mention to you tools you can use more than to tell you which one you should or should not be using. Now, back to the ogres. The ogres still have a number of HP that you can see here. Why is this important? Well, for a goblin who would have, let's say, 6 HP, and an ogre who would have, let's say, 20 or more HP, both of these creatures, goblin and ogre, in the minion version die if they take 1 point of damage. But you will usually have an overflow mechanic to minions, meaning ways to be killed in a greater number even if you don't use an area of effect. And this is to me important mostly for heroes that are more of a melee type, for instance your barbarian with its big axe, or your fighter with their longsword. If they do, let's say 14 damage, they might be able to kill more than 1 goblin. But if they deal 14 damage to an ogre minion, they will kill the ogre because he will take 1 point of damage, but they will not make enough damage that it will take the entire quantity of their technical hit point, if you will, the theoretical number of hit points a normal ogre would have. And so if you have set your ogre HP to, let's say, 24, if a player does 25 points of damage, they will kill the first ogre because he took at least 1 point of damage. And since the technical HP of this ogre is 24, there's 1 left damage point that will carry over to the next minion ogre nearby. And by doing so, you've granted a way to narrate and mechanically take into account that the player fighter is so good that is actually skewering the first ogre, then turning around to chop off the leg of another one. And that's just cool. For damage, since we are talking about the ogre, I would suggest to amp up the damage of the ogres because they are most likely, if they are minions and your players are strong enough that you want to have ogre minions, these ogres are not doing as much damage as the normal ogre, but they should probably do more damage than, say, a goblin. So you could consider them having like a base of 5 damage plus 1 per 2 ogres, or any other increments of numbers that you're comfortable with. This is a lever that you get to pull up or down, and you are going to adjudicate this either on the fly, or you would have thought about this beforehand when you're building your encounter. Then again, we have the usual situation of what is the in-game reason for you to have these minions. Since we've started this video, the obvious in-game reason for minions are to help have a game go more seamlessly or flow more easily, even if there is a lot of creatures. And the second in-game elements there is heroism. The minion mechanic is meant to allow players to engage with a lot of other creatures, and by doing so feel much more powerful than they would usually feel, because if you had given them 6 real ogres, the action economy of D&D is in such a shape that the action economy of ogres would be overwhelming. It would, 1, slow the game, and 2, most likely become a hurt to the players, to the point that the main character, the boss that probably is somewhere around, would be not as important in the end, because the player is going to be, yeah, he's a great boss, but we're getting completely destroyed by these ogres. Now, heroism is not the only interesting point of minions. Minions allow you to have multiple places or points concerned by the minions, and this is one of the pros compared to the swarms. The swarm usually are going to be used as an area of effect type of a creature, but there's still one single token. So unless you use many swarms, which you could do, you will need some other ways to have, like, say, multiple objective. For instance, going back to the ogre encounter, there's the boss. You can imagine that maybe this ogre is fighting in a cave, and there are several entrances into the cave, and the minions are coming in waves that come up at different entry points within the cave. And if you do so, it will force the players to consider where they are placing themselves and how they are engaging with one group or another. Well, that's honestly all there is about swarms. And I'll be coming back to you all with the next video about monster in mass. The next video is going to be about what I call pack monsters, and we will see there what I mean by this. Until then, I hope you have a great day.